After 5 phases of voting, Congress's data analytics department's head, Praveen Chakravarthy, has gone through the data and found that in about 30% of the seats that have already seen polling, there has been a reduction of the number of absolute voters from 2019. He says that this is a deviation from the norms that we've seen over the last few elections. Joining me now is Praveen Chakravarthy to explain what the data that he went through was and what those patterns could possibly mean. But before I go across to him, a quick appeal from all of us. We've been following this issue of inaction and lapses by the Election Commission very, very closely. Do consider becoming a paid subscriber, both of the News Minute and News Laundry, because now you can take up a joint subscription. So I want to start by asking you about your article in the Hindu, where you have said that, contrary to the population data, in about 27% of the constituencies polled, there has been a reduction in the number of voters. This is absolute numbers. Tell us what you found and why this is alarming.
See, I think first we have to distinguish between what the usual narrative about turnout is, which is in terms of percentage, a turnout percentage, and what I use, which is the total number of people who come out to vote. And the reason why I say the two are different is because a turnout percentage depends on the total number of electors in the electoral roll. And that in turn depends on how many new voters are added and how many dead or emigrated voters have been deleted. And that varies election to election. So voter turnout percentage to compare across elections is a bit tricky because it depends on how the intensity of the electoral roll cleaning exercise, right? So, for example, we could have situations where we say the turnout percentage is high, but the total number of voters have gone down. So it could be the other way around. So that's the first step. So what I said was, let's look at the total number of voters that come out to vote. We're a growing country. In a growing and developing country like India, certain things only go up every year. Population, GDP, prices of essential goods, hopefully your salary. The percentage of increase may vary from year to year. But normally these things only go up unless there is some rare demographic event or some other, like a global financial crisis or a COVID-19 or some earthquake or tsunami where there's a lot of turmoil. So what happens is, between 5 years, between one election and to another, the total number of people who come out to vote normally only goes up in a country like India. That is because our population has grown. We are a young country, so the number of new 18-year-olds keep going up every year. And hence, even if fewer people come out to vote, the total number will only go up. And that has been the case throughout, by and large. After 5 phases of elections, 429 seats have gone to polls, of which 2 have already been declared. So 427 seats we analyzed. And we found, shockingly, that 115 seats, nearly 30%, nearly one-third, 27%, saw a decline in the number of people who came out to vote in 2024 compared to 2019. And guess what? None of these constituencies experienced a decline in the number of voters, either in the 2019 election or the 2014 election or the 2009 election. So it's never happened before. So it's the first time. So I can understand a few constituencies. 30% of one-third of all constituencies. So I thought it was alarming and I should put it out.
Can you tell us if there is a pattern you found? What kind of constituencies are these, and which are the states that you saw majority of these constituencies in? Is there anything at all that you found?
Yeah, so I found that most of these constituencies are in 6 states: Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. Most of these 115 constituencies are in these 6 states. I'll give you an example for people to understand. Let's take the constituency of Hathras in Uttar Pradesh, where there was unfortunately a big rape incident and all of that was in the news. In the 2009 election, 6.5 lakh people came out to vote in Hathras. In 2014, that went up to 10 lakh people. In 2019, that went to 11.5 lakh people. Suddenly in this election, 2024, it came down from 11.5 to 10.8. How? So, and we all know that Hathras has been in the news for the wrong reasons. I'll give you another example. Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram constituency. Okay? If anything, there was a greater interest in a high-profile fight this time in Thiruvananthapuram. You would have expected more people, right? 2009, 7.4 lakhs. 2014, 8.7 lakhs. 2019, 10.1 lakhs. Suddenly in 2024, 9.5 lakhs. We all know that Thiruvananthapuram is an important constituency for a certain party. So I am really saying, okay, listen, I don't want to insinuate anything. Okay, I want to also be very clear. But I put out this trend and I've said that these are in these 6 states and I've used EC's own data. These are not my data. This is Election Commission's own data that have been publicly released. So somebody has to explain.
What have you found? Is it a drastic reduction of number of voters? Is it, incremental, or is it in margin, or you couldn't find a pattern in that?
It depends on it depends on constituency to constituency. In some constituencies in Assam, for example, there's been a big reduction. I found that there was a big reduction in the constituency of Wardha in Maharashtra. Wardha is where Gandhiji's Sevagram Ashram is. Okay, and I found that a bit surprising. In some of the urban constituencies, there's been a decline, which has not been a significant decline. But my point is this is the first time that this is happening in India's electoral history, where there's been a reversal of trend. So something that's been going up is suddenly coming down. So what explains this? And I think this is intriguing enough for all of us to kind of debate this.
You've been looking at data for a long time. So I ask you this. Do you think that COVID-19, the pandemic, can account for this? Could that be one explanation?
Yeah, that thought did cross my mind when I was doing it, even though I was very clear that I am not trying to put reasons or explanations for this. I merely want to first publish my finding. But even if we have to take COVID as an example, as a possible explanation, why is it only in these states? For example, why is Gujarat not in the top 6 states? And if anything, the more developed states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra saw less COVID deaths than states like Bihar and Chhattisgarh and others. But they don't, or Bengal, but they don't figure in the top 6. So I don't know. I don't think COVID is a sufficient explanation.
I know you're saying you don't want to insinuate anything, but if I can ask you to wear your political hat for a minute, why do you think these states have been singled out? And what does that mean politically? What do you suspect?
No, see, I think it'd be unfair for me to speculate or insinuate. I think we have to put a lot of this debate in context. I know that there's been an issue raised about voter turnouts. I know there's been a case in the Supreme Court. I know the Supreme Court has made observations on it. And I think we have to put things in context. I think that whole issue has been about the Election Commission publishing voter turnout numbers, right? Now, the Election Commission says, I have given you the percentage. I have given you the total electors. So you figure out what the total number of voters is, which is what I have done. I've used those two and I've said, okay, now I know what the total number of voters is. The complainant is saying, but why don't you publish? Why don't you tell us how many voters are there. The election commission is resisting. I don't know why. Then, so when all of this is going on, and suddenly I use election commission's own explanation and say, okay, fine, I will take the data that you've given. But here's this very bizarre finding. So what explains this? So when you then add this on the top of what the election commission is saying, oh, I don't want to release this data, then it's only natural that people are starting to suspect some motives behind. But I want to be very categorically clear. I don't want to insinuate anything.
I want to pick on one more point that you've mentioned in your article, that many of these are also, seats that are held by MPs from the opposition parties. Any percentage, any numbers you can give us on that front?
Yeah, so we found that close to 40% of these 115 constituencies were won by the opposition in 2019. Some of these, even among the others that were not won, some of these, people generally talk about as constituencies in play for this election, such as Hathras, the example that I gave you, such as Varda.
Where there is a tight contest, possibly, you mean?
Yes, that is based on ground reports, right? So we did find that there's definitely a correlation between constituencies that were either won by the opposition or in play, and these 115 that have seen a voter decline. I think the other important question that some have asked me is it voter apathy across phases? Is it the fact that in the first two phases, people just didn't come out to vote and then it started to pick up? So do you see a difference? And the answer is no. That is not an explanation, because we analyze it phase by phase. The percentage of constituencies that have seen a decline in voters is fairly, it goes up and down across phases. It's not like, oh, it was very high in phase 1 and it's been coming down. In fact, in the last phase 5, was about 28% of constituencies in phase 5 that saw a decline. So this voter apathy is also not a correct explanation. Some others said the heat wave, because apparently there is no Modi wave, there's only heat wave in this country. So could heat wave be a reason? And I looked at temperatures and all that. See, we're having elections now where in pretty much the same time that we had in 2019. And it's not like suddenly the whole country is boiling. I think the weather, there's not a significantly distinct change in weather patterns to explain that. So none of these seem to be satisfactory explanations.
But then you're talking about voter turnout. But your allegation is that much before that, the number of registered voters itself has come down, right? So none of these factors can explain why the number of registered voters has come down. And that is something only the Election Commission has access to, because they are the ones who revise the voter roll. So isn't it something that only they can explain at this point?
No, I am not saying the number of registered voters have come down. I'm saying the number of voters who turned up to vote have come down. Okay? Not the number of electors. Yes, the percentage increase in the number of electors is come down quite dramatically compared to 2019. So, for example, if I have to give you the numbers, then between 2014 and 19, there was a 12% increase. But between 2019 and 2024, there's only a 4% increase. So could it be because of our population demographic pattern, or could it be some other reason? Again, this is something only the Election Commission can answer.
Has this been taken up with the Election Commission, either personally or on behalf of the Congress Party?
So I am told that the Congress Party officially will be taking it up today or tomorrow. You may have seen that there are other kind of leading newspapers that have picked up on this and published it on their front pages today. So clearly, it's an issue that has been discussed. I also saw some popular Hindi YouTube channels do an entire kind of show on this. So it's clearly an issue that has been raised, that rankles. So the party, Congress party, will take it up with the Election Commission also.
Can I get your comment on this entire controversy regarding the Form 17C? If you can explain to our viewers where the confusion is coming from, because in Supreme Court, the Election Commission says that we are not obligated to make all of this public, and we don't do it every year. How has it been? Does the Election Commission put out the absolute numbers every year, every term? And is what's happening this time is that a deviation from that?
Yes. See, I don't want to be. I don't want to sound sexist, but the Election Commission should be like Caesar's wife, above suspicion. Especially in such a climate where there is just so many questions that are being raised, unless and until there's a very clear, categorical, specific reason for the Election Commission to deviate from past norms, then they should explain that and do that. I mean, first, I want to say that it is an extraordinarily difficult job of conducting elections in this country. I don't think anybody in the world does this for 1 billion voters. So I think we must acknowledge the enormity and the complexity of the election process. And I've known a lot of election commissioners in the past personally. And so I truly understand the difficulty and the complexity. But we also have some standard processes. Form 17C is where the total number of voters are entered. They are given at the end of the polling day. The returning officer has to sign off on it, and it is given to the booth agents of all candidates. That is already there, and a copy is there with the Election Commission. So we don't understand what is the difficulty in making it public, because it is already there. We're not asking for any information that is not in the public domain. We're not asking for any new information that the Election Commission should collect. Because there's so much confusion, isn't it better for the Election Commission to say, yes, we will put it out if that's what the requirement is? I think the more obstinate they come across, the more suspicious they look. And that is the problem here.
I want to end by asking you what you make out of the Election Commission's behavior, because in the past, whenever your party leader, Mr. Kharge, also took up certain issues, and you received a very scathing reply, something that we don't see very often from the Election Commission. So what do you make out of the fact that they're not coming out and engaging with either civil society or giving responses when so many questions are being asked of them?
Yes, I think this whole process, in my view, perhaps unfortunately started off on a wrong note when suddenly, a couple of days before the elections were announced, one election commissioner just resigned. And it was all, if you recall, it all happened under very kind of mysterious circumstances. Suddenly the committee was convened and they appointed 2 new commissioners. So I think this whole thing just started off on a wrong note. The Election Commission should have realized it and should have just been far, far, far more transparent. I think the greatest disappointment with the Election Commission is their handling of hate speech and just absolute negative campaign, by starting with the Prime Minister of India to the paid trolls of the BJP IT army. It is just deplorable that on one hand we say we are very proud and the world's largest democracy, but we let this happen. And on that front, I think the Election Commission, I'm sorry to say, has been an utter disappointment.
We leave it at that for today, but we do hope that your party as well as citizens get some clarity, so that at least there isn't a shadow of doubt on some of the processes that are being questioned now. And I also look forward to your party taking this up and seeing where this entire allegation that you've made goes. Thank you for joining me today.
Certainly. Thank you, Pooja.
This election season, your right to choose puts you at the heart of it again.
We'd like to be your eyes and ears.
Choose the journalism and media that serves democracy and you.
Simply head on to newslaundry.com/subscription and pick up the TNMNL joint subscription of your choice today.